Welcome back, and today I'm going to go ahead and make peach cobbler from scratch, including the crust. So let's get started with the crust first. So I need 2 sticks of butter, which is 1 cup of butter, and it's a good idea to stick the butter on the counter to go ahead and soften it up. And so I was actually toasting some bread earlier, and I kind of put it on the toaster oven, and it got a little bit more melted than I wanted it to. I just didn't want it to be so cold. So I'm going to show you this. So if it looks a little mushy, that's why. Okay, so 1 stick of butter is a half a cup, and half a cup and half a cup is 1 cup. So I'm going to start with this. But yes, it was very, very cold out of the fridge and would have been hard to manage. So don't deliberately melt your butter. Mine's only slightly melted. Just have it on the counter so it's easy to work with, and it's a little bit soft. Okay, I'm going to go rinse my hands. 2 cups of flour. I'm going to adjust the camera so you can see me measuring it. There we go. And when measuring out flour, you want to go ahead, looking for a knife with a nice flat top. You want to go ahead and level it off. So you scoop it up, then you take the flat end of a knife or a spatula, and you just level it off. So 1, 2, okay. And now the next thing is a dash of salt. So I'm just going to put a little bit of salt in my hand. Put it in there. And then the last ingredient is 6 tablespoons of water. But before I do that, before I put my 6 tablespoons of water in, I'm going to take a thing called a pastry blender. I'm going to start blending this up. If you do not have a pastry blender, a couple of forks will work, but this is the best tool to do a pie crust. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm turning, whoa, my handle got loose. I'm turning my bowl as I'm doing this. Now you don't want to do this in the mixer because you want the crust to be fluffy and flaky. Not fluffy, more flaky than fluffy. But you want it to be very light and airy. You don't want it to be like thick. You want it like a pastry. Okay, so I'm just going to keep on doing this until it's very well blended. And then it'll be time to add the water slowly. And I hope everybody's having a good day. And what I'm doing is I am making actually 2 crusts. So I'm going to have one that's on the bottom and one that is on the top of the pie. So if you were, let's say you were making pecan pie, this would be, since there's no top on a pecan pie, this would be 2 crusts for a pecan pie. But since this is for a peach pie, which I'm going to have a lid on it, and I'm not going to do a fancy lace one, I'm just going to have the bottom and then I'm going to have the top, and you'll see how I do that in just a few. Okay, so I'm going to continue to do this until I get to the point where I'm going to add the water. Okay, so I'm going to try to show you what I got here. So it's about like that, and I'm just going to add some of the water. So what I have is I have 6 tablespoons of water, and I have this nice measuring cup that's specially made for liquids. I'm trying to hold it so you can see. It's made just for like tablespoons. So it's, and teaspoons actually. So it's kind of nice. So I'm going to add a little bit of the water, and then I'm going to mix it up. And that really made my life a lot easier because I used to use just an actual tablespoon, and then you know, it's wanting to come off the top of the spoon and everything fall off. So this actually makes things a lot easier when you're dealing with liquid measure of a small quantity. Okay, time to add a little bit more water. Now, a pie crust is really something, you know, it's hard to just look at a recipe and know how to do a pie crust. It is something that you really want to watch someone do. So I hope you enjoyed this video because it should help people out that have never done it before. And if they have done it before, maybe I'm teaching a different technique, possibly. Okay, add more water here. Okay. Okay, I'm going to keep on mixing it. Okay, so this is starting to blend pretty nice. And I like to use this more shallow bowl because it's easier to blend the pie crust in it. If it was too deep, it would be, you know, difficult, I feel like. A lot of these things, tips I'm coming up with is a lot of trial and error throughout the years of doing different things. So, okay, so this is looking pretty good. Getting very close. So you know when you're really close when it stops sticking to the sides? So I'm mixing it up and you can see that it's starting to come loose from the sides. It's not really sticking to the sides much. Okay, so I have a wooden cutting board and I'm going to put some flour on the wooden cutting board because I don't want this dough to stick. And there's no set amount, just so that it just covers it. And then I'm going to grab my dough. Okay, so I have this. And I'm going to show you how much it is right here. And I'm going to put it into a nice ball. And I'm going to kind of go like this because I need to cut this in half. Because half is for the bottom and half is for the top. So I have one of these cutters. So I'm just going to try to go as best as I can. Just do your best. You can use a butter knife. That's fine too. I'm going to set this part aside because I'll need it later. And then I have my pie. I have a glass one. That's what I prefer, glass, but whatever you have will work. Or if you don't have them and you want to get a disposable one, that'll work also. I just prefer glass, personally. Okay, so now I'm putting the flour also on the rolling pin. And I got to roll this in somewhat of a circle, so I'm going to kind of just get it at least kind of started here. And now I'm going to, I might have to put my rolling pin into the flour some more. And I'm going to roll this as thin as I can. And this is kind of a, I need to move this flour, it's in my way. Okay. It's kind of a deeper pie tin, which is okay because a lot of times pies tend to kind of bubble up. So I think this will probably be better for me for each pie. This is nice, and you'll know you're doing well if it's kind of nice and elasticy. That's important. And it's not sticking, so that's a good thing. Okay, so I'm going to set my rolling pin aside. I'm going to kind of just go like this. I'm going to put my pie tin here. I'm going to hopefully not break it. And it needs to be up to here. So I have extra, which will be fine because that's going to go on top. And then there's just some spots because you can't roll it in a complete circle perfect necessarily all the time. Okay, I'm going to go grab it. All right, so I'm going to cut off the excess. Like here where the handles are. This is going to get cut off. Now, as you can see, whoops, I'm going to get the rest of the handles. I have extra, but I'm going to need the extra because I'm noticing here it's a little thin. So I'm just going to push this in. And then I'm going to cut this off. And then I'm going to see where else am I lacking right here. I'm going to trim it. And then I'm going to see if there's any other spots right here. It's lacking a little crust. And then I'm going to take, I think this looks pretty good. I'm going to put my fingers down like this. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little water. Go to the sink and get some water, and then I'll show you what I'm going to do to make sure that this all stays together. A little bit of water in here. I'm just going to dip my fingers in here. If you've ever played with clay before, you know if you get your fingers a little wet, you can make things stick together. It's the same with pie dough. So that will be nice and smooth. Smooth that out. Just make sure this is all to the top and I'm not missing any spots. Just kind of go around, and then I'm just going to turn this around so everybody can see what I'm doing here. The technique is just get the fingers wet, just go like this, and like I said, reminds me of dealing with clay when you're working on ceramic stuff. Okay. When baking and cooking, you have to be willing to get your hands dirty. That's for sure. Okay, so now I'm going to just take my fingers and I'm just going to press. Make sure it's down very well. And I'm going to go around here because I don't really want like an air bubble to get up underneath. And then the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take a fork and just lightly poke in here. Not all the way through, just a little bit. And that helps. When I put the peaches in and I cook it. All right, so now the next step we're going to do is we're going to actually, I see a spot right there. We're actually going to start in with the peaches. I got the top of the pie set aside, and I will start with the peaches next. Okay, so my neighbor brought me over these wonderful peaches, so I'm very happy about that. I went ahead and I washed all the peaches up already, and I put them on a cooling rack just to dry them out, because I actually did that yesterday. So I'm just going to start going ahead and cutting up the peaches and showing you how that. These are freestone peaches, so this should be pretty easy. So I'm just going to go like this and go around, and then freestone means that the stone comes out quite easy. Okay. So then I'll just do a couple of them like this just to show you to get started. This should be pretty fast because they are freestone. Okay, so I'm going to do it. I cut it in, basically it's in half already, and then I'm just going to do this. So this is the size I'm looking for. So it gets cut in half, and then half again, and then another time, and then another time. So I'm going to go ahead and continue to do this, but what I'm looking for is about 5 to 6 cups of peaches is what I'm going for. So I have to fill that up. So I'll be back shortly. Now, if you find a little imperfection, you just have to cut just that little bit out, and then just continue. So just cut out whatever you need to cut out. I used 12 peaches. I saved the pits so I know for sure. And they're about like this size. So I'd say like a medium peach. So depending if you have larger peaches or not, you know, you might need less, or if they're smaller, you might need a little bit more, but that just gives you an idea. So I'm looking probably at about 6 cups is what I think I got here. It's kind of between, it's kind of hard to say because there's like air between it. So it's kind of like, to me it looks like it's about 6 cups, 5.5 to 6 cups. So I'm going to put this in a bowl because I have to add stuff to it. Now you do not pre-cook your peaches when you make pie. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is we are going to get some white sugar, and we're going to get some cornstarch, and we're going to get some cinnamon, and we're going to measure that out. And I think I'm going to actually measure it out into here so I can kind of stir it up a little. So we need a 1/2 cup of white sugar. Okay. I'm going to see if I can, let me adjust the camera just a tad. Okay. So I'm going to scoop out a 1/2 cup of white sugar, level it off. I'm going to put it in this bowl. And then I need a tablespoon of cornstarch. So just, here's one of the brands of cornstarch. There's all different brands, I think. This is the one that my store sells. And I'm going to use a tablespoon of cornstarch. Tablespoon. And I'm going to use the lid to level it off. So I'm going to dip this in here. And I'm going to go like this. And I'm going to put it into my bowl. And then I need, let's see, I got my sugar, I got my cornstarch, I need my cinnamon. And I'm going to do a teaspoon of cinnamon. Okay, and I'm going to put that in there. And then I'm going to take a fork. Oops. First I have to grab out the right thing. Here's my fork, and I'm just going to mix all this stuff together. Let's kind of well blend it, because I don't, when I put this on top of my peaches, I don't want like just a glob of cinnamon. I'm just trying to make a nice mixture. That smells good already with the cinnamon. Between the smell of the cinnamon and the peaches in the air, it's already smelling pretty good. All right, so now I'm going to take the peaches and I'm just going to move them over here into this. This is a different bowl than I had for my crust. And I'm just going to go like this. This looks like a lot of peaches. I hope I don't have too much. If I do, then I'll deal with it. It's a pretty deep bowl. So then I'm gonna just take a spoon and just kind of lightly stir it, with trying not to damage the peaches. I'm just gonna keep on adding this and stirring. So you don't really want your peaches too ripe because it could just turn mushy. These are just the right amount of ripeness. I'm just going to probably, so I'll do this one more time. You can see it's, some of the juices, it's starting to thicken up from the corn syrup a little bit, so that's good. I'm going to just do the rest. Try to do it evenly. Okay, that's everything in the bowl. And I'll stir this up. Just so that I don't see any more cornstarch or sugar or cinnamon. You know, the little granules. Just so it's all, you can see it's all blended in now. So I'm going to go grab my bottom of my pie crust. I think I might need a bigger spoon than I was just using for stirring. So I'm going to take a big spoon and just start laying these peaches in here. It'll be interesting to see if I have the right amount or too much. I think I might have the right amount. Sometimes you have to guess on this stuff, because I did have a deep pie crust. Not all of them are this deep, so I think this should be correct. And as I said before, it's already smelling very good with the mixture of this stuff. This is looking good. I'll just try to have it even. Okay. All right, so here's the last of it, and there's some juice. So I'm just gonna, just a little bit of juice from the peaches themselves. And I'm gonna set this aside and we're gonna work on the top crust. Okay, I almost forgot. It's a good thing I did not. What we're gonna do next is dot the pie with some butter. So it's probably gonna be just like maybe a tablespoon and a half, or almost 2. And you can see the tablespoons on your butter. It's marked. So I'm going to just go ahead and cut this. And then I'm just going to use this little parchment paper that my butter's wrapped in. And carefully just cut up the butter. Doesn't have to be perfect because it's going to melt. I'll show you the size squares that I'm going to do. Like this size. And I'm just going to kind of put those every so often in the pie, because then it'll melt and it'll make it, everything's better with butter. So make it taste delicious. I think I'm just going to use my hands at this point. So I'm trying to do it with a knife. This will be good. Try to go with this. Just a couple more pieces. And then we'll be done with that part. Okay, so I'm going to set this aside and we'll work on the crust. I'm going to reflour my cutting board and my rolling pin. And then I'm going to take and the rest of my crust. And I just put this cutting board aside. So that's how I did it. Because I wouldn't want to wash it up and then have to start all over. And it hasn't been that much time. Because it really is not that difficult to make a peach pie. Okay, so I'm just going to try to roll this out as thin as possible. This is going to be the top. Some people go ahead and they cut this in strips and they do like a lace on the peach pie. That's one technique. This is the technique that I like to do. Once in a while I do it the other way, but this is my favorite. I actually very much enjoy the taste of the crust. So for me, the more crust, the better. So it's looking like it's probably ready. This one just, for whatever reason, is coming out nice and round. My bottom one I was struggling with, but you just never know sometimes. Okay, so this is the trickier part. This is time to do the top. I know I definitely have enough room, so that's good. I mean, enough pie crust. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of pinch it down. I kind of want it to adhere to the bottom. Okay, so in the meantime, while I'm doing this, I had preheated my oven to 450. I will bake this for 10 minutes at 450, and then I'm going to reduce the heat to 350 for the rest of it. So I probably will repeat that again just so everybody remembers. So I'm going to cut off the excess with a sharp knife. Okay, now I just need to work on the area where the handles are. This is an extra deep glass pie tin. A lot of them aren't that deep, so that's why I was able to probably get away with all those peaches. I actually have some extra dough. Not sure what I'm going to do with that yet. All right. So I'm just going to go like this. It's kind of, don't be in a rush on this last part because this kind of makes a lot of difference as it's cooking. You just want it to look nice when it comes out. Okay, that looks pretty good. Now in the center, I'm going to cut a hole. I hope it comes out. So I want a little hole in the center. Yay, it worked. That's why you need a sharp knife. Okay. And then, so you got the little hole so it can kind of breathe, and then I'm just going to make some light slices. I'm not even going all the way down. I'm just almost going all the way down. And I'm going to go in between here. Okay, I'm happy with the way that turned out. And now, I'm going to kind of turn my hands off a little full of stuff. I'm going to take some raw sugar. I'm going to put some in my hand. I don't know how much I actually need. I'm going to put it in my hand, and I'm just going to start on this side. And start just kind of sprinkling it with the raw sugar. This gives it a nice crunchy sweet taste. You don't want to overdo it, but you don't want to underdo it either, because you want to make sure that each bite has some of this wonderful raw sugar that tastes so good. And then sometimes when it bakes, it might just, there might be maybe a spot just because of gravity that it might not quite get stuck on. That's okay. So I think there's just maybe a couple little spots I want to maybe throw just a little extra on. Okay, so this looks wonderful. All right, so I will go ahead and put this in the oven at 450 for 10 minutes, and we will check on it. Okay, there's the pie after 10 minutes at 450. I'm going to reduce the heat to 350, and I will check on it in 40 minutes. All right, so the pie is done. I'm going to let it cool off, and then we'll do the taste test. I can't wait. Okay, time for the taste test. I can't wait. It's making everything smell delicious today. Make the whole house smell so good. It came out so good. Peaches are absolutely delicious. Very, very good. And the crust is very flaky and buttery. And the little sugar that I put on top gives it a little bit of a crunch and sweetness. And very nice texture. I'm very pleased the way this came out. I hope you enjoyed it. The video. Now, remember when I was doing the video and I ended up with extra crust? I figured out something to do with it. I did not film it because I thought it was going to be a flop, but it did come out. I'll show you. As if I don't have enough sugar already from the pie. Okay, so what I did is I rolled it out really thin, the leftover crust, and then I just took some dark chocolate morsels and put it in. So let's try it out. It came out looking pretty good. There's one spot where the chocolate came out, might be a little bit burnt. I thought the whole thing wasn't going to work out, so that's why I didn't film it in the beginning. But hey, let's try it since it did come out nicely. Look at this. Came out really nice. And just to show you, this is actually easier to show you here than in the pie, otherwise my hands will get all dirty, but look how nice and flaky. Oops, where am I on this? Trying to go, I'm going the wrong direction. Okay, I'm going to have to move the camera up a little. Okay, trying to show you the flakiness. There we go. Okay, you can see how flaky that crust is. Okay, so I'm going to try a little bit of this. I'm going to have the end piece because I do love crust. Oh, see how that came out? That's really good. I'll have to remember this when I have leftover crust. I don't even know what to call this. Chocolate pastry of some sorts. I don't know. But I will have to share this. It's huge. And if I want to eat some of that pie, I'm not going to eat any more of this. Okay, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Hope you have a great evening. Those of you who subscribe to my channel, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. And if you don't subscribe and you enjoy the content, it is free. Have a nice evening. Thank you for watching.